the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
Welcome back to This Week in Cincinnati. We're speaking with Republican Ohio Congressman Jim Renacci, who is running for the U.S. Senate. As we mentioned before, we are recording this program on Monday, February 12th. We normally record this program later in the week, but again, we wanted the opportunity to speak with the congressman and kind of work around your schedule. So once again, I appreciate it. Let's talk about the heroin opioid crisis and the epidemic. Obviously, the Trump administration has released now funding aside from the emergency declaration, the health emergency declaration, which really didn't do much. There are funds now being trickled out to the states to help. How much more responsibility do you believe actually lands on the pharmaceutical companies and the distributors for getting us into this problem in the first place?
Well, first off, the opioid addiction problem is multifaceted. The one thing while I was in the governor's race, I learned a lot of things. We have a state that directs everybody to college. So you have kids that are in high school that don't want to go to college. When I met with opioid individuals who were addicts and recovered, it's one of the biggest concerns was when I went to high school, I was told I'd be useless if I didn't get a college education. So we have to change that too. We have to look at the manufacturers. But remember, there's a whole chain. You got manufacturers, you got distributors, you got doctors, you got patients. Right. What I learned on the patient side was, on the patient side, they want no pain. They want to go home with no pain. I go back to when I was in high school, I was in a motorcycle accident, a terrible motorcycle accident. Hit a car at 55 miles an hour, went over the car, put the bike underneath it, ended up down the road 100 yards. Right. Went to the hospital, no broken bones, but bruises all over. But I went to school the next day with a bottle of aspirin. The difference back then was we weren't we weren't to the point where you had to have opioids. You went back to school with pain. Right. Now there are some people that say, I can't take the pain, and I understand that. We have to have some exceptions. But I think it's all of the above. We have to look at our hospitals and our doctors prescribing and why they prescribe it. Some of it's policy. I'm not blaming them. Some of the policies that the federal government puts out says, you have to get these people pain-free. Right. But at the same time, we got to look at the manufacturer. It's not just one silver bullet. That's why I got frustrated when we say we got to go after the manufacturers. Well, you can't just go after the manufacturers. There's distributors, there's doctors, there's patients. It's a multifaceted thing.
There was a comment made during President Trump's visit here, and there was really clearly, while there are some bipartisan discussions that happen on Capitol Hill, it's a very partisan environment right now. And there was one comment that the president made during his speech that really received national headlines. Let's listen to that.
And you have the other side, even on positive news, really positive news like that, they were like death and un-American. Un-American. Somebody said treasonous. I mean, yeah, I guess why not? You know. Can we call that treason? Why not?
Many Democrats, of course, responded with outrage to that. Do you agree with the president's comment there?
Well, remember, the president was repeating a comment that was made in the audience, and I think when you do that sometimes, you know, he just said, yeah, treasonous, but he heard that from somebody outside.
But as the president of the free world, shouldn't he put on the brakes and go, we're not going to call it treasonous?
Well, look, I might use other words. I would not use the word treasonous, but at the same time, the president says sometimes what people are thinking or saying. I say that all the time. People get frustrated with me when I said it, but here's the perfect example. Somebody in the audience said it. A lot of times people are thinking it, somebody in the audience said it, and he repeated it.
But is it right that the president repeats it?
Well, I can tell you one thing. The one thing that people like about the president is he's saying in many cases, and I know people get furious when I say this, but as I travel the state, people say, the president's saying or thinking or talking about what I want, what I believe in. Now, some people say, well, that's not me. I understand that. That's not everybody. But in the end, what we really have to realize is, look, I was at the State of the Union address. It was horrible when we were talking about American troops, American flags, you know, the boy from North Korea that had the crutches. These are moments you stand up and cheer for, yet the Democratic Party was sitting down doing nothing. I also have been in those same State of the Unions when President Obama was speaking, and I stood up and cheered when he said things that were really saluted our American troops or our American people or some of the things that are going on in America.
How do you navigate the president's tweets? Every day there's something new that's catching a headline or somebody's talking about a new shiny object per se. How do you navigate that in that path?
Well, I watch him, I see him, but again, a lot of times he's saying what he believes. He's trying to get it unfiltered. Look, we're in a day and age today where people love to catch people in the public eye and get what they say and put it out there, but not really what they mean. And so I think what I've learned in my years here in Washington as a member of Congress, people want to pick off things that you're saying, but they don't take it in the full context. At least he's putting everything in full context. Not something I would do, but again, I'm not going to tell him not to do it.
All right. Congressman Renacci, our conversation will continue in just a moment, and we're going to be talking about immigration coming up. Keep it here.
The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.